Do you ever get into a situation like this? Man, I have £430? Well, I've got nothing to spend it on. Huh. Mario Kart World, a title that's become synonymous with overpriced this console. A few months ago, the Nintendo Switch 2 leapt onto store shelves, and our cash leapt with it. There's been a ridiculous amount of contention surrounding this launch. Accusations of anti-consumer practices have been rampant. And who would buy a Switch 2 when it's pushing games up to the insane price of $80 in the US? Me. Whilst I may have zero sense of financial awareness, I also have a shiny new Nintendo system, and there's so much to do with it. I can check the settings, change my profile picture, choose my theme. God, there's so many options. Yeah, game system out of the box, worthless. What am I gonna do with this thing? It looks like it would be a nightmare to ingest. Well, it's not gonna stop me from trying. You need a game, more specifically a launch title. Launch titles are great. They can show what a system can really do, explaining the reasoning behind its very existence. Games like Super Mario 64 have demonstrated not just why their game system is valid, but cemented themselves in gaming history as all-time greats. So, after going into overdraft, it's time to take a look at what Nintendo has graced us with this time around.
Mario Kart World!
Oh, hell yes! On paper, this looks like an absolute slam dunk of a launch title. Mario Kart is one of Nintendo's best-selling and most accessible series. Fun multiplayer and plentiful single-player that essentially everyone could enjoy. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on Switch was an absolute cornerstone of the console, being a game that millions around the world could enjoy together, and really aiding in validating the purchase of a Switch for a large number of people. Mario Kart 8 on Wii U was the same thing, but in a casket. But like I said, on paper this looks like a good idea. Just like this. But how did we get here? Well, it all started on the 16th of January 2025, when Nintendo released the very first look at Nintendo Switch 2, kind of. Yeah, so a load of details about the system leaked ahead of this trailer, but you know Nintendo, they don't like to announce if they breathe oxygen, so major details about the console leaking, yeah, that wasn't gonna fly. So we got this trailer quickly cobbled together and thrown on YouTube so Nintendo could have the pleasure of announcing their system on their home turf. Most of the trailer was pretty standard, new Switch design which everyone knew was coming. But then the trailer ends with a very brief look at a whole-ass new Mario Kart running on the system. This was a huge deal at the time. The last Mario Kart game came out over a decade ago in 2014. The gamers were on the verge of revolt. But it looked like we were finally getting a brand new entry in this beloved series. I, for one, was celebrating. The world, on the other hand, was burning. Yeah, see, in this trailer, people caught a glimpse of Donkey Kong, and that's not the ape I know. People were furious at Nintendo for using the Mario movie design for Donkey Kong, replacing the tried and true Donkey Kong Country design we've known for so many years. So many were genuinely acting like this was the end of the world, with countless YouTube videos being made talking about the death of the Switch 2. Just wait until these people find out about Bonanza. But outside of monkey-related fury, optimism was high. Mario Kart was back and headlining a brand new Nintendo console. We were out of the Dark Ages! Now all that was left to do was wait for new information. And wait we did, because it took 3 whole months up until April before we got another peek of this new Mario Kart. The internet made content on these 10 seconds of footage the entire time. It was a rough patch. Along came the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, which is an hour of non-stop Switch 2 reveals. Loads of content was covered, including the previously mentioned Donkey Kong Bonanza. But alongside this came a trailer for Mario Kart revealing the game to be titled Mario Kart World. This trailer was insane, chock full of fantastic music and great visuals. It made Mario Kart World feel like the event that it was. On top of this, it gave us an explanation behind the whole world thing. This was going to be a fully open world Mario Kart, with a giant map to explore in free roam that connects all the tracks together to create one gigantic Mario Kart world. Roll credits. This idea was incredibly exciting. It also caused some serious doubts. You see, one of the things mentioned is how we would finish a race and then drive to the next track instead of just starting the next race like a normal Mario Kart game. People were worried that this feature might be an excuse to shoehorn in open world gimmicks and prevent us from enjoying the core experience of Mario Kart. And that concludes my lesson in foreshadowing. But hey, at that moment in time, we were just happy to have a brand new Mario Kart on the way. Hell, we wouldn't even have to wait that long, with the Switch 2 launching on the 5th of June, 2025, alongside Mario Kart World as a pack-in title if you bought the bundle. Buying the bundle literally slashes the price of Mario Kart World down from $80 US to $50 US. So it's basically a no-brainer to buy this, given it's the game everyone was going to buy with their system at launch anyway. And so the fateful day of June 5th arrived. Everyone who was able to secure a pre-order for their Nintendo Switch 2 collected the console and the game. So not me. Yeah, I didn't actually get a pre-order. I naively waited to get paid from my part-time job, and by the time that had happened, literally everywhere was sold out. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the life of a broke 18-year-old. So I managed to secure my console a little bit after launch. I even had to wait extra time for my local stores to get the Mario Kart bundle in stock. Shout out to Curry's PC World. I drove down one sunny afternoon and picked up my system, ready to go home and play all night. Without further ado, this is Mario Kart World.
Mario Kart World!
According to the internet, this is the Antichrist. What makes Mario Kart World such a divisive entry in the Mario Kart series? Rocky Wrench cannot have damaged the brand that much. Well, it all boils down to the introduction of intermissions, the whole drive to the next track gimmick I mentioned before. In a standard Mario Kart game, you do 4 races and a Grand Prix, with each race consisting of 3 laps around a track. It's simple and it worked. Gosh, I wonder if they changed it. Now in Mario Kart World, things are a little wacky. So you start each Grand Prix totally normal. It's like the opening of a horror film. The scares are yet to come. You do 3 laps around a track and have a great time before it hits you with the first jump scare of the game. A straight line. Jesus, Nintendo, put a content warning on this thing. This is an intermission. Could you tell? Intermissions are boring as hell. You drive in what is basically an entirely straight line all the way to the next track, and then only do a single lap of said track in most cases. This is horrible. I trust I don't need to explain why spending 2/3 of your time in a race just driving down basic-ass roads to reach the actual track design is not a good idea for a Mario Kart game. It got so bad that in every single online lobby, people would always vote random for the next track because it had a high chance of not giving an intermission. People were desperate to avoid these things. And what does Nintendo do when people actively dislike a big new feature in their game? Double down. That's the Nintendo I know. Yep, Nintendo released an update making it so random track select would now have a far higher chance of dumping you in an intermission, because they'd be damned if you didn't play with the new mechanic. This change annoyed absolutely everyone. Heck, annoyed is an understatement. They had family-friendly Nintendo content creators cursing. Things were bad out here.
All they had to do was make 2 different online modes. One where you can play intermissions only, and one where you can play traditional tracks, where you can play the tracks traditionally, with the 3-lap way. The old school way, the old and lame way, instead of the hip and cool way, where you drive in a straight
fucking line for 3 minutes.
Today we're going to be going over 5 Fortnite YouTubers who've sworn.
I've always found intermissions to be fine. I don't actively hate them, but they just add nothing to the game. If anything, they detract from the overall experience. I can already free roam on this map in the open world mode and drive between each track there, so why does Nintendo feel the need to force it into regular Grand Prix? And it stings even more because this game might genuinely have some of the greatest track design of all time. So many amazing standouts and highlight moments. DK Spaceport immediately springs to mind as an insanely fun track that takes homage from the original Donkey Kong arcade game. Driving around these metal girders while dodging barrels from a giant mechanical Donkey Kong is just pure unfiltered fun. The Rainbow Road in this game is immaculate in its quality, and one of the few times intermissions aid the quality of a track. You drive down from Peach's castle to head through a portal to get to this grand reveal of Rainbow Road with sweeping music. It's magical. Every track in this game is so fine-tuned and so expertly designed, it's clear that the Mario Kart developers have hit the apex of their skills when developing this game. So why won't Nintendo let me play them? It's crazy that we have these unbelievably high-quality race courses, and Nintendo would rather force us to drive in straight lines for 5 minutes before permitting us a few seconds of actual fun on the actual race course. Mario Kart World is full of baffling decisions like this. The biggest example isn't even with the intermissions, no. The biggest and most egregious example of poor decision-making in Mario Kart World is the open world itself. The open world has hundreds of collectibles, Peach medallions, question mark panels, and minigame-esque challenges activated via P-switches. What's your reward for doing these? What? You get nothing. There is zero reward for completing things in the open world, zero incentive to get out there and explore. But Mick, I hear you cry. What about the unlockable characters? Surely they're tied to the open world in some way. Maybe if I complete a certain amount of mini-games or nab all the Peach medallions? The way you unlock characters in Mario Kart World is one of the single dumbest ways to unlock characters that I've ever seen in a video game. A handful can be unlocked by just beating cups, standard Mario Kart stuff. But then we have the Kamek Wand. The Kamek Wand is an item that spawns incredibly rarely in a race and turns every player in front of the user into a random character. If you don't have that character, then you unlock them. Why? So let me get this straight. Nintendo created a game entirely themed around an open world that you can explore and complete objectives in. They made it the entire identity of the game and then locked the unlockables behind an RNG mechanic. This is genuinely some of the poorest game design I have ever seen. Mario Kart World has an amazing, expansive roster of characters. I mean, come on. Pianta? Conkdor? Point 1 for 3D World. But then Nintendo decides to make it totally random on if you can play as any of these characters, not unlocked through skill or through general game completion, just a ridiculously drawn out RNG system. Plus, even the carts are unlocked the same terrible way they were in Mario Kart 8, just collect a certain number of coins. Again, no use for the open world here. I don't need the open world to pick up coins, I do that while playing the game normally. But wait, I lied, because you do get something for the open world content. Stamps! Stamps that you put on your car, but you can only have one on at a time and can't customize where you place them on the vehicle. At least in other games, you can use stamps in the photo mode. Point 2 for 3D World. In Mario Kart World, they do introduce a photo mode. Can't use the stamps in it though, that would make too much sense. So for this game, Nintendo created a massive sprawling open world and filled it with things to find, only to then remove any and all incentive to interact with said world, and then to overcompensate, they ruined online mode by shoving the open world down everyone's throats, detracting from the actual tracks themselves. I think I get why people don't like this game. But here's the thing, I've been heavily critical of Mario Kart World, but that criticism comes from a place of love. This game has so much going for it. Like I've said, the track design is near perfect and it's always a blast to play, as well as the character roster being nearly as expansive as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's selection. The game also introduced the brand new Knockout Tour, a fun side mode that requires you to get a certain placement to not be eliminated. This is good fun and I'm glad it's here. Any variety is always heavily appreciated. I haven't even mentioned one of the greatest new features that this game brings to the table, something we saw in the very first sneak peek back in January. The game added 24-player races. This is chaos incarnate, and it's an absolute blast to play. It honestly makes going back to older Mario Karts with player caps of 12, or god forbid 8, really difficult, as the new packed lobbies make for so much fun, with items flying everywhere and channeling the exciting core experience of Mario Kart to its fullest. When you combine this with the stellar tracks, it makes Mario Kart World an unbelievably enjoyable game that has me wishing it didn't have all these tiny problems holding it back. Because those tiny problems are darn plentiful, which painfully makes me unwilling to call this game better than Mario Kart 8. The hype for a new Mario Kart is well and truly there, but this game just isn't providing the evolution that the series needed. Rather, it shows hints of that evolution, but stumbles at the execution every single time. Mario Kart World is a good game, there's no denying that. Some people may even call the general gameplay loop and level design a masterpiece of gaming. But the game is plagued by a huge host of flaws that all stem from an underutilized and heavily problematic open world that can really damage the core experience when it bleeds into the tracks with things like intermissions. The game has a lackluster reward structure that is built off mostly stamps and doesn't make use of the open world in any clever ways, instead cramming RNG nonsense down everyone's throats in an attempt to artificially extend game time. This game can only be described as a frustrating masterpiece, one that is the embodiment of fantastic game design one second and then suffocated by a collection of small problems the next. But who knows, maybe the game will have these issues improved with the inevitable release of paid DLC down the line. Wait a minute. My house is being repossessed.